And so it was very clear to me that this was an economic problem that needed to be addressed. And so therefore, the way I was going to be able to help wasn't necessarily by going and rescuing people in this situation. There was already, quite a lot of people that I was aware of in the space. But one thing that they kept saying was that it's fine to rescue someone out of these horrible situations they find themselves in, but it's that next step that we're missing. What happens then, and it was a really high number, the percentage of people that would end up in a worse position as a result of being rescued with nothing to go into than if they had just been left there. And that was really confronting for me. And so I knew I wanted to start something that gave them employment and equipped them with all the things they need so they can be successful on their own. And that was, I didn't have the strategy in my head. I didn't know how to really do it. I just figured it can't be that hard to make jeans. If I was going to make anything.
Welcome to another episode of Justice Matters, and I've got my good mate, James Bartle, on the show today. He is the founder and CEO of Outland Denim, and he believes that fashion can lead the way in creating a more just world, and his denim company is doing just that. It has received a litany of awards, most recently the Thomas Reuters Anti-Slavery Award. It's a certified B company, which you'll find out what that means a little later in the show. It's got A+ on ethic reports by various fashion industry reports. This company truly is doing some incredible things. One of the things I love about James is just how honest and raw and passionate he is. He's not afraid to acknowledge the mistakes that he's made along the way. I'm really grateful that I get the chance to share this conversation that I've had with him, with you, and the opportunity that you're going to have to learn about this amazing brand, Outland Denim. James, thanks for coming in, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. Stoked to be able to come and finally catch up like this.
Yeah, first of all, how's the family? How's Erica and
Good, mate. About to have a baby any day. So that's our third little boy.
You got a little boy this time.
Yeah,
how awesome.
Yeah, third time.
Oh, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And you said any day.
Any day. Well, she's not due till the end of the month, but it's
goodness me.
But she's been early with our first two, and so we've got two little girls, and so having a boy is pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
Pretty stoked.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love it. And well, thanks, man, especially for coming down the mountain. When you probably need to be close by.
Oh no, she'll be fine. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll make sure you give her my love when you get back up there.
I will.
First of all, man, I am just so thankful that we get to catch up. You've been pretty busy of late. I noticed there was a big share option or launch for people to be able to invest into Outland Denim.
Yeah.
And we'll get into a bit about Outland Denim and some of the stuff that's been going on, and love to hear a bit more about the history of that. But what I really want to kind of start with is just thinking about you and your journey. Some of the formative. If you look back at your formative years, can you think about any particular moment? It could be growing up, it could be recently, but where you kind of where justice became a real passion point for you, or really fighting for the oppressed became something that obviously it oozes out of you now. But can you think of when that kind of began for you?
I think a bit of a natural progression, really. I mean, I watched my parents, as I grew up, I was always getting out of my bed for, someone who needed somewhere to stay, and so I was always watching my parents, serve people that needed something. They always just loved on community. And so I guess it was always there and always in my face. And I think I've always admired my parents for the sacrifice that I have seen, consistently. My entire life that they've sort of demonstrated. So I think that's always been there. But it was really, I think, a moment for me when, I was made aware of human trafficking and then following that journey through, and an experience I had during that really changed everything for me. It was, to see a really young girl for sale and how scared and vulnerable she was. It was a life-changing moment, and I think having grown up in Australia, in a very privileged position, I just was completely naive to the realities that the majority of our world face in being vulnerable economically. They're in these terrible situations, or having to, sacrifice in ways that you and I may not have had to. And so I think it was that realization, and then seeing this little girl, it just changed my life.
Yeah, and that was on a trip that you were on, is that right?
It was, yeah. So that all stemmed out of the first thing. Like I said, I watched the Liam Neeson film Taken, and I remember leaving the movies that night furious, outraged, wanting to start some kind of vigilante that would come against these bad people in the world that were taking advantage of others and stealing and selling them. I just couldn't believe that was a reality. And I know it's a fictional film.
Yeah.
But a few years later, after a lot of research, my wife and I had learnt a fair bit about human trafficking and what it looked like. And I got the opportunity to travel with the rescue agency, not to be involved in rescues, but to see what the problem looked like on the ground. And it was on that trip that I saw this little girl, and you just couldn't ignore it. I mean, you walk through these red light districts where there's lots of ladies for sale, men as well, for sex, and to be honest, it didn't confront me that much to begin with. It was like, okay, I've seen this, I've seen those areas before, nothing really changed, and to be honest, they looked happy to me. But as we got out of the main areas and into some of the darker places, that I saw this young girl, and it was very clear she didn't want to be there, and she was very scared, very intimidated. And as I asked the rep that had taken me, I said, what's this girl looks like? She's just a kid. And he goes, yeah, she does look like just a kid. And he said, it actually looks like it could be her first night. She's really scared. And I said, well, what can we do for her? And he said, well, James, if you look around, they're everywhere.
Awful. Wow.
So I pictured my nieces at the time, and, I'd do anything to save them if they were in this position. And as I realized later, it's not because they choose to be here. It's not because their families choose to be here. It's because of desperation. And so it was very clear as to what we needed to do. We need to address that issue. What makes them desperate? What makes them vulnerable? Yeah.
Well, man, I think, we have very similar upbringings. I just found out just before we jumped in here on the studio that we were both PKs, Baptist, pastors. Our parents were Baptist pastors, and we both, I guess, carry maybe some of the scars and the the privilege of that upbringing, like you said, having parents that just really served and modeled that community. But I guess, like you say, it's not until you can come face to face. We're so far away here in Australia from a lot of these quite intense situations, and it's not until you actually come face to face with the reality of it on the ground that really kind of can, turn the switch for you.
Yeah, man. It's I guess we don't really realize. I mean, there is need here in Australia as well. There's some pretty crazy needs as you start to get below the surface as well, and to some of the rural communities here in the cities, homelessness and these things. And I have been surrounded by those things. I've seen those things. I've been spoken to about those things, and for some reason, it never really resonated with me. It never drove me to want to do something. I always had compassion when I saw someone in need. That was a natural thing. But to actually go then and do something was, I guess, not necessarily the action you'd see following an event like that. So I don't know why it changed when I had to see something as horrible as I saw with my own eyes for it to actually change. But mate, growing up with the backgrounds that both you and I have, it certainly does give you an education as to the range of needs that you see within all of our communities, that there is a real need for coming up with better ways of being able to, be inclusive and inviting people from all backgrounds and cultures and needs to feel at home and like they have purpose and a place in their own communities.
Right. Well, you make a real valid point there, mate, that you actually don't have to go overseas. You actually don't have to go far to encounter injustice, to encounter people that are in desperate need, and that people that we can fight for in our own backyard. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you've all people have seen the craziest extremes of, what it can look like abroad. But now I know that you work with those same people here in Australia, and whether it's a refugee or whether it's just someone who's not able to fit into society as easily as others, it's just around us all the time. And I think there's this one movie, Pay It Forward. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I just
awesome.
love the movie because I think the concept is so brilliant. It's hey, you do something nice for me. It's not necessary that I now return that to you, but you've done something to help me, and now I'm going to look for others to help as a result of what you've done for me. And if we all continued on this journey, this movement grows, and the world changes. And
it does, yeah.
I think the key to actually writing some of the greatest challenges we face today, especially on a social level, is to be able to address it with just love and understanding, and when we can just stop and look at it from through those glasses, things look different. But whilst we look at it in the busyness of life and we don't really stop and slow down and try and understand why that person is in that position, we will never be able to understand. If we can't understand, or we don't even try to understand, we can never love them. And if we don't love them, then nothing changes. We all just want to be loved at the end of the day. That's what we're all looking for.
Oh, totally. Wow, man. Yeah, just stopping and taking the time. Oh, man, I find that a lot whenever I see a situation. The moment I'm actually able to stop and maybe put myself in their shoes and ask, well, why are they acting out like that? Or why are they in the situation that they're in? I think when you lead with that kind of element of empathy and ability to learn and to listen, you realize, oh my goodness, there's so much I can actually do to help in that situation, or and not just help as in a handout, but there's a way that I can hopefully give them a voice, to share their the situation they're in. Now, you chose to go obviously down maybe a less conventional route to actually making a difference, in particular with what you saw in the realm of human trafficking and anti-slavery work. And you chose to build a jeans company. Can you tell a bit about how that came about and why you went down that route?
Well, it was actually on the very first trip, the one that I've already mentioned, where I was made really aware of how bad this problem was. And it was amongst poor communities that we were traveling and seeing the needs that they had. And so it was very clear to me that this was an economic problem that needed to be addressed. And so therefore, the way I was going to be able to help wasn't necessarily by going and rescuing people in this situation. There was already, quite a lot of people that I was aware of in the space. But one thing that they kept saying was that it's fine to rescue someone out of, these horrible situations they find themselves in. But it's that next step that we're missing. What happens then, And it was a really high number, the percentage of people that would end up in a worse position as a result of being rescued with nothing to go into than if they had just been left there. And that was really confronting for me. And so I knew I wanted to start something that gave them employment and equipped them with all the things they need so they can be successful on their own. And that was, I didn't have the strategy in my head. I didn't know how to really do it. I just figured it can't be that hard to make jeans. If I was going to make anything, denim was the space I wanted to work in. I love denim.
Does that have anything to do with your love for Tremblay jeans? Can you shed light?
Oh, well, I don't know why, but ever since I was a little boy, I've always been very particular about what I like and what I don't like, and jeans had to be just right, even as a little boy. So I don't know, maybe it was meant to be, but I just knew I didn't want to create a t-shirt company. I was in the hinterland of the Gold Coast, and so I'd seen like every second person I knew had a t-shirt brand, and I was like, I want to do something that's going to have real substance. They've got to work hard to learn it. And I didn't know denim was the hardest product to make, and I didn't know it was also the most competitive product in the marketplace. So it was absolutely crazy to even start on a journey like this with people who didn't know how to sew. But we started on that trip. I started working, put a partnership together with an NGO, a non-government organisation, and said, look, I want to help in this way. I have a business in Australia. I'm gonna use that business to fund this. We got people around helping and contributing their time, people making donations, and we started to build this little bit of a movement where we could see that it was having a positive impact on those ladies that we first employed. And then we continued on this journey for about 6.5 years before we even launched our brand. And it was really so that we could prove the impact of it being as powerful as it is, where they themselves made the change. Our job wasn't to be the white savior, come in and save the day. As much as probably that's the mentality I started with. I thought I was going to save the day.
Sure.
I realized that actually I could be really destructive in the way that my thinking was and the role I thought I needed to play in this. But really what it was a role to facilitate the right things to come together. From education.
I like the way you put that, facilitating.
Because I think that's really it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like even for all of us, you see, your peers, those that have had parents or mentors that have equipped them with the tools to make good decisions themselves.
Right.
They go on to be, I don't know, I don't like calling it successful, but, have a much more, I think, stable life than those that weren't equipped with that were given the things but weren't taught how to use the tools. And so I think that's where we come from with Outland Denim is to equip them with the things they need to be successful themselves. And sometimes that comes in hard love and sometimes that comes in compassion.
Right.
Always has an educational component to it.
Because it's creating opportunity that otherwise they would not have, right?
Exactly.
And it's often the inability to have the same access to networks, opportunity, or to training and education.
Absolutely.
That is some of the more systemic problems you have to kind of come up against. Yeah.
There's no question. I get really excited that we've been able to prove that business holds a really vital key to some of the big issues that we do face today, whether it be social, environmental, economic problems.
Right.
I think business is actually one of the most exciting spaces to be right now. We're in a very unique time in history where businesses can actually use the power that they have to change people's lives or change the outcomes on industry and on environmentally and so forth.
Right. And I think, like if businesses that are successful right now changed the way they operated and did things, it would have a major impact. And if new businesses that started came in with that socially conscious approach to the way they do it, we can make a huge impact. Which kind of leads me to my next question, which is we caught up, we've kind of been in touch over the years. I remember, I don't know, it was 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago when we caught up at was it Jason's house? Whose pad was it? Anyway, good mutual friend's house, and you were chatting to me how you kind of started out with a more of a charity model, and you shifted to that more business or social enterprise model. Can you talk us through a bit about that? Because I reckon there'd be a lot of people that might be running a charity or want to start a charity. And I remember you specifically, I was just getting You Belong, I think, going at the time, or had some traction heading there, and you're like, if I were you, Tim, just consider this as an option. It's going to be a lot easier, save a lot of heartache. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, we started as a not-for-profit, and the reason was that I felt it was the most purest way of saying, hey, world, I want to make this impact. I want to work with these people, and this is not about me. This is
right.
And actually, the further into it I got, the more I realized how much pride was involved in that. I wanted to be a martyr. I wanted to be somebody who was prepared to give up everything to help these marginalized people. And I didn't realize how much pride was in that at the time. And it's taken years, and still I discover things in myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, like that's really the reason I was making that decision or this decision. Right. But that's a lifelong battle, isn't it? Sure, like dealing with those things inside that
I feel like I'm constantly up against that myself.
Yeah, and we all are. But I had another business I was using to fund it. I nearly killed this business. I was just taking everything out of it that I could to put into trying to have this impact. And I realized that I had a couple of ways of financing this thing. Cash was the thing that stopped it from having any power. I either had to apply for grants and win grants, and then I go into competition with all the other amazing charities and not-for-profits around the world that need that money too, or I go and get investors and I get cash. but I can't get investors with the not-for-profit. I had to look at the structure, and I just went to all the other stakeholders, and I said, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do it without your blessing. I got everyone's blessing, and I went out on my own. And it was really scary because it's like, okay, now I've got no backing whatsoever. It's only my business. No one could make a donation. No one could help in that way now that I'm a for-profit business, and which we call profit for purpose. And so we went down this road, and I started getting investors on. And as I brought investors on, we had cash flow. And as I had cash flow, everything changed. We were for once able to invest into the things that we needed to be able to create genuine, lasting change. But I had to make that big shift. And again, it was game changing for what we do, but all because of cash flow. Actually, there's one thing that really helped me jump over that line too, and it was B Corp. I don't know if you've heard of B Corps, but it was probably the one thing that gave me the courage to do it. And what it is it gives you a certification. You become a B Corp. And that means they audit your business. And you're a for-profit business, but they audit you to see what it is you're doing, what's important to you, and basically score you on whether you can even get B Corp certification or not. And going through that process meant that, okay, there's still a governance level there that's outside of our own board that's going to be looking in and not advising, but
keeping you accountable,
keeping us accountable to what it is we say we stand
Standards.
for.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. So when I saw that was probably the catalyst that made me go, yep, I'm going to for-profit because now this exists. I remember having to wait. I think it was a year or so. It had passed legislation in the US. It had moved into Australia, hadn't passed legislation here in Australia, so we weren't able to become a B Corp yet. So I had to wait a year until that was through, and then I went through the process.
I find that pretty interesting because, sometimes nonprofits and that whole charity realm can kind of get by a little bit without being held to the highest standards of audits and I guess accountability as well. Because you've got a lot of volunteers and a lot of most people are just really giving their time sacrificially to make sure those things happen. And so sometimes you kind of can give them a bit more grace when they don't get it right. But I love how you kind of embraced the almost, no, it's important that we lead with integrity as well as a business. Now I've got a printout here because there's two pages full of all the awards that Outland Denim has achieved in the last couple years, and it's super impressive. It's got obviously your B certified corporation, which stands for best for the world, and you're in the top 10% of that currently at the moment. You've got Global Fashion Agenda awards. You've got, it's just the list goes on. The winner of the Thomas Reuters Stop Slavery Award 2020 this year, A+ in Ethical Fashion Report. You guys are leading the way, and you did have some, obviously, people have been supporting that. You had Meghan Markle come behind you and other well-known people that have obviously realised what an incredible impact you're having, which has really helped you. Now, what has been, I guess, how important, I would say, has it been for you to kind of go after, and you don't go after awards for the sake of awards, but how important for it is you to kind of hold to that level of excellence and integrity as you move forward as a brand?
I think it's really important. And the reason is that if you want to change something that's, as wrong as what the fashion industry has become, wrong on so many levels, yet has the ability to be an absolute life-giving industry. 1 in 6 people in the globe work within it. If you want to be somebody who can challenge and change
you
an
said
industry,
1 in 6 people in the world
work within the fashion industry at some level. So if you want to change the world, it's an amazing industry to do it through.
Wow.
We all wear it.
Sure.
So, it's a great place to start. Food would be another incredible place to do it.
Right.
But I go, then you need to be an industry leader. And you know what's crazy is I actually don't, people call us, you're the disruptors and I just don't like the term. It's like, yes, as much as we're disrupting a way that things have been done, we're not actually here to disrupt and make things worse. We're here to come in and go, hey, we found a better way. Now, that's taken a lot of investment. It's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of risk. But actually, the changes we've made aren't that big. We get called innovators all the time. And there is some really cool innovations that we've been able to do in the pipeline. But really, it's not that innovative. It's actually just going, hey, how would you want to treat people? If you treat people like that, what's the outcome of that? Can you measure that over time? What are we going to be able to show to the world? If you buy this product, it means this. And so it's really just that journey that I guess has set us apart while we've been able to experience that. You mentioned the Thomson Reuters Foundation Stop Slavery Award. I mean, that's the biggest award we've ever won. And the reason for that is Thomson Reuters, as you know, I mean, such an incredible body to I guess, give you their stamp of approval.
Sure.
But the Stop Slavery Award is why we started. Not the award, but stopping slavery is why we started. Now, slavery doesn't just mean, those that we picture like in,
the films.
The films. Yeah. It's those that are oppressed by, marginalized. It's the hurting people. That's how I see it. We obviously have people in garment factories as slaves, in brothels as slaves, in households as slaves. But it goes much broader than that, and what we need to address. And if you could become an industry leader and you could influence an industry that has the power to touch the lives of 1 in 6 people, then could you change the world? Is poverty something that has to be with us? I don't believe it has to be with us. I believe it's because of the choices that we make in the way that we run our industry, all industries, all the way down to our personal decisions on what we buy, what we support. But my goal would be that if we could become an industry leader, and if we could prove that this is financially viable, but in fact, even more profitable than doing it the other way, then what would happen? Would the world change? Would we start looking at things like poverty as being something of the past? And I said earlier, I think that we're in a very unique time in history. I think this time will mark history as when industry stepped up and changed things. We might think government's in place to be able to address the social needs of our community, but I don't believe that. I believe that we are in place to address the needs of our community. And so if we use our businesses to do this, things will change.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's personal responsibility then, isn't it? It's easy to kind of say, well, if the government did this different, and rightly so, governments need to reform, policies need to change. But if we say, oh, well, it's up to the St. Vinny's or these charities to be the ones, and I'll just give them my money to do what they do, then again, we're kind of avoiding the personal responsibilities of the day-to-day things that we do, how we shop, how we live as consumers, because we're all consumers. We're consuming products. We drank our McDonald's coffee before this, and we all are participating one way or another in the economy in that respect. But so from a personal perspective, this obviously hasn't been an easy journey for you. I couldn't imagine anyway. It takes a lot of hard work to set up a company whilst running another business, whilst having a young growing family. Can you talk about maybe some of those challenges to get there? Because, we don't want to paint this thing with rose-colored glasses either, and be like, you're going to just get out there and it's as simple as 1, 2, 3,
Well, all too well with your own journey. I mean, we often, my wife Erica and I would talk about you guys and watching you over there, and in a really tough country, in a tough environment, loving on people and risking so much to be there, and that being absolutely inspirational for us and part of our journey, and that is a real thing. It's like you need stuff to look at. You need others to look at and go, man, they're doing it. Like, I got to keep going, be inspired by others. But man, the journey is hard. And, I've had my lowest moments in here. I remember the first time. I'm not an anxious person, and I'm very optimistic about most things. And but I remember sitting on the side of our bed. My wife had never seen me with anxiety, and I was just gripped by it because I didn't know how tomorrow I was going to pay the wages of these people in Cambodia, whom desperately rely on this. The consequence for not paying them is high. It's not like here in Australia where we've got welfare and we can probably go to someone we know and get some money or stay at their place or eat at their place. It's not necessarily like that for all of our staff. And I just thinking, my gosh, I can't pay them. What are we going to do? But miraculously, like so many occasions through this journey, a bill would be paid. Or something would happen and I'd have the money. I could draw some money from here or borrow some money from there or, and I've just had to do that the whole way through. I remember emptying a milk bottle full of gold coins that my uncle had given me. And that's how I could afford to get the next flight back to do the next thing. And, it has been hard. And one of the most incredible outcomes of the challenge, because I think the challenge has to be there. And in fact, if it's not there, I think you don't actually get to reach your potential. So the hardship is really good. And all of last year, my goal was just to see the hardship as an opportunity. If I can feel peaceful amongst the chaos and the not knowing, and I can still be joyful and peaceful, imagine how much could be achieved, if you could be in that place. And I can't say I'm quite there, but I'm still working toward that. And every time I see one of these next challenges, I go, this is my next opportunity to see if I can get through this one a little better than I did the last one.
Wow, man.
But I know that there's always a way. And so I always say to my staff, it looks like it's not possible to us today, but I know that there is a way. If we're committed, if we really want to stay true to what we're called here to do, which is to love and look after this particular people group right now, then we will find a way. And this is 10 years I've been in this for now. Our brand's only 4 years old, but there was 6.5 years of development before that.
Totally.
And we're still here. And man, I've had no food in the fridge. My wife and I looked at each other one night years ago now, and we laughed. And we're like, we literally don't have food. What a cool experience. How awesome is that? But it's only a really small insight into what it's like for these other people. I could have gone down the road and asked somebody for some food.
Right.
They don't necessarily get to do that. So it's really cool that we get to be challenged in this way and just learn to be better at those challenges. So lean into the challenges, my advice for anybody. Don't see it as, woe is me. See it as, oh, that's really cool. Because many people don't, man. They get to go through life just cruising. But the substance isn't there.
Right.
But you keep getting beat down and get back up, beat down and get back up. You get stronger every time. You get better at it and wiser. And, so I think we just need to embrace the challenges and the hardship.
Man. If I was in a church, I'd say, preach it, man. But thanks for being so, I guess, honest and open with those challenges. I feel you with the anxiety, with the dark days, the weight of responsibility you have carrying a family, young family, and also, so many people that rely on for their livelihoods on this on Outland Denim going and being successful. Can you talk a bit about maybe some of the more challenges as a brand as well? I'm thinking we're like in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic. You've had a launch for investment. It's not been easy, as you've alluded to. There's times when you're not sure if it would be successful enough, but I'm sure people out there would love to hear,
Yeah, man, the business has absolutely had like massive challenges, and I don't know how we're still here. I really don't. So much of the time, like I've said, we've had no money. I can't pay wages yet. We have 100 staff in Cambodia.
Because everyone thinks, right, you look at the Instagram post and you've got, Meghan Markle and other famous people promoting it, and suddenly, that must just mean you can just sit back on your laurels and
they do.
And everything
I'm
just
rich.
Everything's just fine. But we all know, that just in some ways can make things more difficult, right?
Well, that experience, absolutely. That's a great example of one that made it really difficult. It was really good, and I'm so grateful for the support of Meghan Markle, and she's supported us on so many occasions now. You know, like we see amazing things where the media will say, "Oh, Meghan and Harry have just gone out in LA somewhere. We know it's this shirt and these shoes. We presume it's her favorite Outland Denim jeans." You know, no one even knows. You know, so like that's pretty incredible, man, to have that, and that's it speaks to who she is as well. I think she's a pretty amazing human to support brands. She's always looking for brands to help, but you know, she wore it, and we had just launched in the top 2 department stores in Canada. We'd just launched or signed with David Jones to launch here in Australia. So we were growing really quickly. And then on top of that, Meghan Markle turns up in Dubbo here in Australia.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gets off this plane wearing Outland jeans. I just arrived in Cambodia the night before. So I woke up because it's 3 hours behind over there in time. And my phone is going mental, and find out that's like Meghan Markle's worn Outland Denim jeans. Media's going mad. Like there's the TV appearances. They want someone to speak on this. It's like, so I jumped on a plane and left straight away thinking, this is amazing. Can't believe it. I had my sales manager with me at the time in there, and he's like, his phone just going, it notified every time there was an online sale, and it was just going ding, ding, ding. You know, it was incredible. We're like, whoa, like, man, I wish we had more product, because we sold out of product really quickly, and, you know, they really want what she wears. There's a little bit of overflow, but it's mainly if she wears this jean, they want that jean. So our Harriet Black has become famous because of Meghan Markle. But what followed was this incredible amount of growth. I had to employ 46 new seamstresses as a direct result of what happened there, which is a great thing.
Yeah,
you know, that's achieving what our goals are, is to bums on seats, you know, vulnerable people. But man, like managing that, now we've got exposure internationally. We've got department stores internationally that are wanting to look at collections, and we're not ready, and so we're having to hustle. And man, honestly, we lost the culture during that period of time of what Outland is and how we treat our people and love our people. And when you lose guidance there because you're all hustling so hard, you take your eyes off what's really important. And it doesn't mean the way we treat people, but just in, we're here to work and we're focused on this only, rather than, hey man, are you okay today? You know, that was a really tough period where I feel like we could have fallen over. We made it through, and, you know, we're ready to grow again. We've spent the last year and a half really stabilizing as a company. But then to go into a pandemic like this, where I've never experienced anything like this. I don't have a game plan. I go to YouTube to learn how to do lots of things, but YouTube isn't able to tell me how to manage this. And so I really have to rely on, you know, I guess what you've learned over time. And, you know, I've got a really strong Christian faith, and I really rely on that to make decisions. You know, from a worldview point of view, it's like what's important, and my faith tells me what's important, and I focus on those things. And, you know, today, that's really why we've been successful, is it's like, what's important? People are important, you know, focus on the people, love the people, create opportunities for the people. Yes, you need to have the economic side of your business functioning well. But man, if you marry them both, then you supercharge a business. And so, you know, you talk about some of the brands that don't necessarily value that human component of their business. And I don't just mean they're direct that work at HQ with them, but I mean those right down in the supply chain.
Every level,
They don't value them. And so over time, they're going to lose faith. And as consumers become more wise to the realities of our fashion and the choices they make, they're going to back brands like Outland Denim. That's what we're seeing now. Our sales have increased, direct-to-consumer sales, as many brands have online at the moment. Our exposure has increased. Our opportunity to be able to see the outcomes in poor communities that we have seen has increased. You know, so the opportunity is bigger now as a result of COVID. Black Lives Matter, it's another one.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, even as that has kind of become an issue that we've had to, we really need to put a lot of focus on as it's come to light in recent events. I love the fact that you've been willing to stop, listen, learn, and even make those course corrections in your own company. Yeah. Can you talk a bit about how you've done that?
For sure. Well, I remember, you know, the media, we had to, as a brand, make a stand. Where do you stand? And the media pretty ruthless with this these days. Hey, there's a big social or big issue going on. Where do you stand as a brand? Because we want to know whether we cancel you from society or not. So it's a pretty scary thing to be a brand
social
today.
Media can be hard because it'll take anything that you put out there and it can be weaponized into any direction that anyone goes at. But
absolutely,
to not say something is to say something, right? So
I believe so. For not necessarily for everybody, but I think when you've got a responsibility like our brand does, where you do have some small level of influence over your community or within your community, not over, but you do have to say something. And so I remember when
for people that have, a strong core conviction, their faith that people do matter, that people are equal regardless of race, ethnicity, background, whatever the case might be. It's there is an obligation, really, isn't there, for us to...
There really is. And, I struggled as, it came across my desk, and my first reaction was, this is horrible what's going on, but as a brand, we can't speak up about this because that's not the battle we're fighting. That was my first thought. And I went home and I really thought about this, and I just got deeply convicted of like...
Hey man, thanks for your honesty. I mean, most people wouldn't admit to that.
Yeah, well, I just thought about those people that feel that way. I'm not talking about why people feel that way. I'm not talking about what the solution is. I'm not talking about any of that. But there was a question that was really clear to me that the Black community were asking, do I matter? And my answer to that is, you matter.
Better.
Now, I don't align with the Black Lives Matter organization. This is, I'm answering this question. Do you matter? Absolutely, you matter. And I'm so sad that that's a question that needs to be asked. I'm so sad about that. And then I had to look internally and go, wow, I've actually been a part of this problem. Not because I don't see them as someone with a different skin color as equal. It's because I've grown up in a society where there is, some major issues. Some of the sayings, man, like that I've only just been made aware of, like horrifying. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catcher. I thought it was Tigger by the toe. They were real sayings in community. So when I see people stand up and fight this, I go, you don't think there's a problem, with our society when they were real sayings that we were teaching our children to run around and catch a... Like crazy, man. So I see as a brand, like we have a responsibility. I love people. Skin color doesn't matter, So we have to now incorporate more visuals into our campaigns of all kinds of people, not just Black people, like people from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, So we're going to do that. And also then size. Size has been one that's been put across my table for years. And I always go, hey, yeah, I get that. And but we're fighting this one battle has always been the thing. Hey, I don't want to take my eyes off. I know that this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for this. And those things do matter, but we're fighting for that. I'm not going to take my eyes off. And it was through this that I realized, so as much as somebody with Black skin doesn't feel
like they belong,
or neither does somebody who's of a different size to your typical sample sizes that we make samples in one size, they're shipped over, we have to find a model that fits that size and we shoot them. We've just gone with a traditional model. It takes a long time to change that and get your systems to change, and we're in that process now. But
so there's this systemicness to it, isn't it? It's not something that's just, it takes courage and man, we are all on a journey of discovery, and to how, whether we've been knowingly or not being complicit to a society that hasn't valued everyone equally. And I love the fact that you're willing to make those changes, because so often we think that they're compartmentalized issues, but at the end of the day, more and more I realize that they are all one and the same. These are the hard things, even you can be out there thinking you're doing the best thing you can be, and again, no, you can do better. And it's that strive to know we've got to do better. We've got to acknowledge where we can.
And social media is very scary today, so intimidating. And unfortunately, it's become such an unhealthy place in lots of situations. But my experience so far has been we've had a lot of pushback, and we of course get nasty comments and all of that. But overwhelmingly, we get a lot of support. And if you're going to be real and authentic, I don't believe generally you're going to be crucified for it. But you do need to be real and authentic.
Right.
And
you can't virtual signal. You can't kind of pretend that you care, but you don't really. Which it has to be.
It has to be. And I think that's what we believed as a brand we needed to, on this particular issue with Black Lives Matter, we needed to stop and go, okay, I don't know where we stand on this. Haven't thought this through. And, I copped a bit of slack from the side and respectfully, most of it was respectful, on, hey, but do you know? And I go, yeah, I get that the media don't necessarily report things accurately all the time, but I'm not speaking about any of those things. Yeah. All I'm saying, the Black Lives Matter, you matter.
Yeah.
Is there lots of things that need to change in every camp? Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. This is a moment in time. This is something that we can. And man, thank you. I love that. It's been a journey, 10 years, like you say, 6.5 years of actual development, and the rest of actually kind of being a public brand. And I believe it's only the beginning. Can you highlight anything that's kind of coming up and exciting for Outland Denim moving forward? Because I've been privy to some conversations, but once you...
Man, there's so much that's exciting. I look at the space and it's so big, and I go, if you start measuring business off of the three elements that needs to be measured off of our social return on investment, our environmental return on investment, and our economic return on investment. If we measure all three of those things together, what could be built? It's incredible, and now's the time for that. So a brand is one thing. But imagine if we could open this up to be able to produce for other brands. What if we could get these other brands that already have influence and power and now start making their stuff so that their brand has the same kind of influence as Outland Denim has? Then you supercharge the brand or the movement or the impact that can be had. And so we've just finished our very first production run for Karen Walker, who's an incredible brand to start with based on the fact that the brand cares about these things. She's an icon in the fashion industry. We're sampling for a second brand at the moment, and really that's the future. That is to produce for other brands as well as Outland Denim, and just build them to be household names that people think, I need denim, it's Outland Denim.
Yeah.
I believe that product is the answer to solving these things. Imagine if you just go and buy a pair of jeans that you love. And then you realize that the byproduct of that was that you changed the people's lives that made it. But not just the ones that made it, not just the cotton farmer, not all those people in the supply chain, but the retailer. Today we hear about going direct to consumer because there's more margin. That's again because we're measuring only one measure. What if we support the bricks and mortar retailer? What if we support the sales associate on the floor? What if we support the consumer with the things they need to be able to talk about it and create this movement to be even greater and stronger and more powerful than it is? Then you have something that's really holistic. But at the moment, we don't see that happening in lots of business, especially in the entrepreneurial world. It's direct consumer, cut out the middleman. It's like, let's not support
local businesses.
But people rely on this. Our communities rely on retail, and retail is where we get to interact a lot of the time and socially, and it's a good thing. And so the byproduct of our jeans is that you support people from the beginning to the end of that process of creating and selling a product. And then environmentally, you change the outcomes on our environment. So what if the world was left environmentally in a better position as a result of creating a product and the people were too? What would happen?
How do you do that?
possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. And we're working on things, which I can't tell you today.
Cool.
I want to, but man, they're game changing. Like if you can turn fashion into something that's good, you see the CSIRO and the things that they're working on with cotton, and you look at the denim mills around the world and the dyeing processes and the reduction in water and the things that we're working on. It's just incredible.
I just love the energy and the passion for, like, we're not just going to settle for this one thing. We're going to just go after the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Well, I think, man, it's unfortunately we have settled, and see, there's new studies now that will actually link slavery to environmental degradation.
Wow.
So when I see the environment being destroyed in the communities we work within, I mean, it's sad because I know that has a direct result on the people we care for.
Right.
But we see this movement, right, where this global warming thing, all of these issues, which are real issues that we need to address, but they forget the people. Slow fashion is a thing right now, and I'm just making the statement here that slow fashion is not the answer. It might be the best thing we have right now on an environmental level, but man, the impact that will have socially in poor communities is devastating if we reduce our consumption. So there has to be a better way than that. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm going to find the way that you address both these issues with one product. And if you can do that with one industry, you can do it with all industries. And so I believe the future is really bright if we continue to innovate and believe that it can be done. We've got like 1,000 investors in our brand now. You alluded to it earlier.
Yeah.
Those investors are real impact investors. One of the greatest challenges I've faced actually in raising investment is that investors aren't very educated here in Australia around real impact investing. And how to measure that and how to put value on that. And so we went to the crowd. We went to, the Australian and international community, and we ended up with over 900 Australian investors who say, and 80-something% of them said that they were there because they were there to have impact with their investment. They all expect a return. We're here to have impact. That's the new way that businesses are now going to raise money. They're going to go to the crowd. They're going to raise small amounts where people aren't risking as much. They're going to get the values for the companies that they need to get. And there's lots of good reasons for keeping that. But then you're going to see these kinds of initiatives have a real go. They haven't been able to have a go in Australia because impact investors don't really know how to. They're not there yet. They're evolving because this is quite new. So we've got a lot of amazing impact investors out there that are keeping up, and this equity crowdfunding model that's only a year old here in Australia is speeding that process up. So I'm pretty optimistic about what the future looks like, not just for Outland Denim, but for lots of those that are out there trying to carve a new way, because industry, the way it's been done, hasn't worked. We've seen that over a long period of time now. So now it's time to do something new, and it's happening.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm proud to say I'm one of Outland Denim's investors, and I was able to get on that mainly because I knew you and I believed obviously in the work that Outland Denim has done. Is there a way for people to get involved still? Like, is that option still available?
It's going to open up. We're actually going to open this up. So we had such success from this campaign. I mean, and again, it was in the worst possible time. We were advised to stop. Don't go ahead with this. You're not going to be success. We're the fastest company to hit our minimum target that they've had.
Wow.
It was epic. It was amazing. Blew us away. But what we've realized is the real power isn't the money you raise. The real power is you. The real power is those 1,000 investors we now have that are out there as brand ambassadors that are talking about our brand, supercharging our brand. So if we are able to increase that, what if we had 3,000 investors? What would happen to the brand? I mean, if we're really here for impact, giving it every chance it's got of being successful in a retail store. Let's just say we launch a new Nordstrom store.
Because you're in the US now, right?
We are, yeah. We've launched with Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's. Obviously, it's a really tough time for them.
Right.
This is a great opportunity for brands to support them. To see that they can still be there, next year.
Right.
So our investors have the opportunity to be able to be a part of that journey, and then, I guess at the end of the day, hopefully they also then receive better dividends than they would from their other investments to be able to continue the journey on, to just make sure the momentum continues.
Oh man, I feel like every time I chat with you, I'm like ready to just go and start a social enterprise and try and make a difference that I know Outland Denim is. If you want to buy a pair of your jeans, I'm wearing my trusty dusties
Nice.
right now. But where do they go?
Outlanddenim.com.au in
Yep.
Australia, or just .com in the US.
Yeah.
We've got warehouses in both regions and also in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Or in the UK, so we can deliver directly. But then we've also got Nordstrom's for women's in the US, Bloomingdale's for men's,
David Jones
East
here.
and West Coast, David Jones here in Australia. And people say, "Oh, how do we support you? And can we make a donation?" And I said, "No, you can't. But if you want to support us, buy a pair of jeans. Actually, by buying a pair of jeans, it's way greater than if you gave us a $200 donation.
Right.
It has a way greater impact. It's about buying the product, loving the product, talking about the product. But if you don't like it, don't buy it. Like we don't want charity purchases.
They're great jeans.
We
they
want them
last.
Yeah.
They've been my best jeans that I've ever owned. So
I'm pleased to hear that.
And I'm not just saying that because
cool.
you're a mate, but and they can learn more about you as a company, as a brand too, by going there and because like you said, you want people to be informed consumers. You want them to know that they're actually having an impact and making a difference. And I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up, I try and ask all my guests this, and it's simply this: why does justice matter to you?
Oh man, that's a deep question. I don't know how you can answer that quickly. It can't not matter. It can't not matter. I don't know how any human believes that it could be right. They have more privilege than someone else. So when I look at the world, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. I think you deserve the same love, and we don't all get the same opportunities. Life isn't fair, but that's not really what this is about. Justice matters in that I will do everything I can to love and support those that I come into contact with. And if we all do that, then, man, the world is a much nicer place to be.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate you taking the time to come in, man, and you've lived it, and I'm grateful for your friendship. And what can I say?
Well, thank you, man.
All the best.
No, I appreciate it, Tim. You've been an inspiration to me and my family and others in my office, as well as we've watched your journey and your family's journey and your wife as well, man. Like you take her to the craziest places, and your kids and the things they would have experienced. And so like we just go, man, I love being able to rub shoulders with someone who's lived it as well. And you're a raw, honest guy as well. So I'm going to get the real stuff, and I really value that. Learning from others that have been there too. So thank you.
You're the best, mate. All right.
Awesome.
Get back to your wife.
Will do.
All right.
Awesome.
See ya.